we have the new Mega AccuFake and official Nerf Mega AccuStrike. Make.Test.Battle, just educational enough. Hey guys, I'm Justin, and today we are doing the comparison that everyone wants. We have the new Take NF Strike Mega AccuFake, where basically they've duplicated the AccuStrike AccuFake tip and enlarged it. We also have one of the new official Nerf, there's a drone, Mega AccuStrike. Now I only have one of these, so for this test I'm going to shoot this about 6 times, this one dart, and then I do have 6 of the new dart. And so what we'll do is compare it primarily to itself, because this isn't really scientific for, say, accuracy or like actual performance, but what it's really good for is seeing the flight characteristics and the consistency of the dart. So let's do a deep dive comparison of these three. Lol, I think it's that barrel. Like, my dudes, I don't know about you guys, but that's pretty good clustering. That was really interesting, very obvious. This was really consistent. You saw the little pile. Now, so do remember though, that's coming out of a stock, Australian stock, Cyclone Shock. And though these barrels are pretty good, and that there is this thing on the front here, which may be getting in the way, I don't know. So I wouldn't say that this is a complete definitive test, but it's a pretty good, I think, representation. I think further testing might be needed, because I think the next leap forward is accuracy and consistency for Nerf. Because, you know, back in the day, power, everyone wants that power, so, you know, you had all the old school air blasters and that kind of thing. The next big thing was rate of fire, kind of arms race happened with flywheel blasters. We're at the point, like at 16 darts per second, you're running out of a mag. It's a bit too impractical. To the next kind of thing that you're seeing, scar barrels and that kind of thing, where we're trying to work out the most accurate dart or how to accurately shoot stuff. And so one of the big things that we found, kind of initial testing of the Worker Stefan Gen 2 ones, it really comes down to the tip and how well centered the tip is onto the head. With darts with a rounded tip, what we think is happening, because you have that curve, you create an aerofoil which doesn't actually like help correct it to the front, even though you've got that weight to the front. What we think with AccuStrike darts, the spin caused by the fins is pretty insignificant, we think. The big thing is the fact that it has a flat surface and all the weight is to the front. Because of that, it's like it's self-correcting because of that surface. Nerf also knows this, and so that's why with their new ones, they haven't bothered to try and make an upscaled version of like the original AccuStrike. They've gone for just a flat face, hollow tip. And you know, when you think about it, this also explains why when Coop did those accuracy tests with the old streamlined suction cups, they were really accurate. And this is probably why, where it had a concave surface with the suction tip. Possible advantages, and probably the reason why Nerf didn't go with this thing is pretty solid. It's a solid silicone tip, and holy balls, have they took a lot of advice from the community. Actually, big shout out to Peter Winter, who runs Wasteland Wars up in Bendigo, just north of Melbourne. We did that gameplay there. He actually contacted him and gave him like design specifications of, you know, this is what the community wants. Tough glue and a tip that is just shy smaller than the actual foam, So then that way we can actually put it inside barrels, like actually sealed barrels. Because what we found with AccuStrikes, it acts like a squeegee, you know, or like a plunger, I guess. Too much friction is slowing down your barrels. It's opposite for performance for flywheel blasters. Flywheel blasters work off friction. You know, you want as much friction as possible. Is this the idyllic Nerf Mega Dart that'll work good in flywheel Mega Blasters like the Mastodon, and also hopefully work good in barrels? Now, we do have a barrel material that should work for Megas, so we'll see what we can develop. Just from because I had 6 of these, they all landed in a really small area. So now the real question is, what will happen with high performance? Like, we need something powerful. So I think that might be a future build. Make.Test.Battle needs to do modding again. We need to make something cool. I might be able to adapt something for the sledge fire. From shooting these, what I did have on the ground though is I did have one of these sitting on the ground to aim at for the stock Mega AccuStrike. Lots of syllables. And it did seem fairly consistent. Like, I was aiming in that direction, it was going in that direction. Like, I know that's, well, duh, but everyone knows that, you know, Nerf darts can be inconsistent, depending on the type. Whereas these kind of, you know, went wherever they wanted. And if they had a bad start, they would continue that. One last thing I do want to touch on is spin stabilization for darts. If I flip the dart up, trying to spin it along its axis, see what happens. You see that? How, I don't know if you can capture that. I might need a slow-mo camera, but because the center of gravity is to the front, as it spins, really, if you were like to find like the proper center of gravity, it's gonna want to do that, spin about there, because that's where your center of gravity is going to be. It's pretty far to the front. So because of that, that makes spinning along that axis, down the center, unstable. And so that's if you were trying to do gyroscopic stabilization. I think that's the terminology. But what we think is happening with a tiny bit of spin, so not too much spin, scar barrels, is that there's just enough spin to average out inconsistencies. So combining that, well, say doing that on a curved dart with the aerofoiling, say it's flying off this way, but because it's spinning, that curving is going along like a corkscrew towards the target. However, combined with the flat surface of both of the AccuStrikes, so I think a little bit of spinning, but it might not even be necessary. Final thing, this is not a big enough sample size to be definitively scientific and empirical. I'd say, like, to even get close to starting to have a good sample size is you get 10 darts and you fire them 100 times. That way you've got 10 darts to average out across of, and then you've got 10 shots per dart to average out that dart's characteristics and that kind of thing. So that'll be interesting. Let's see. I'm really curious to see what you guys come up with in the modding community of just some high power Nerf blasters to fire these new darts, because holy balls, like, that's good. Help stabilize it. So annoying, I gotta compete with the birds, the cars, and now fucking drones. Ah!